Perfect. There it is. Okay, so this is our interviewee today. What's your name?
Fred Swan.
Fred Swan. He's here with us on day number 57 of the Art Life video blog. I'm Christopher Hoisington.
My name is Jacob Wolf.
And we're here at the People's Art Gallery again. Thank you, Chris Haberman, for providing this space for us.
We have our own little personal gallery, our own Fred Swan gallery today.
Fred volunteers down here on Fridays.
It's very cool.
Yes.
That gives you certain freedom. So I got here just before you came and hung my pieces up on this work and on these walls. So I did have a book opening here in this gallery in May, so it felt kind of familiar to me.
That the book is the reason that I was introduced to you and your name. Chris Haberman, when we were here doing our interview with him, loved what we were doing and was giving us artists to interview. And he gave me your book and he was like, here, you need to interview this man. Get a hold of this man. He told me a little bit about your story and I was flabbergasted. And I was like, we have to interview Fred Swan. I've been looking forward to this interview since that day.
Thank you. Chris is a terrific man and he promotes a lot of artists in Portland. And a writer himself, and he actually did a reading at my book opening, so I was really honored by it.
So how long have you been an artist?
Well, you know, when I was a kid, I had kind of an unusual childhood. I remember him as an adult, and so I entertained myself a lot. We moved 13 times across the United States, so I didn't exactly establish a lot of friendships. And my parents were always in search of some kind of dream that I got to witness in the back seat, from the back seat of the car with my dog. And so while we were driving across the country, I would draw pictures of places we'd been, because you know, it wasn't like you had a phone camera that you could use to record. So I'm 74 years old, and that was a long time ago, in the 40s, late 40s and 50s. And I suppose the thing that launched me into a real interest in pursuing a life related to some kind of creativity was in the 8th grade. A teacher who was a coach came along and slapped me on the back and he said, "You're a really good artist. This is what you should do. You should be an architect or draw, make paintings or something." And then that's all I did. I mean, I just went home and started drawing and to try to make him see that he had made the right analysis. So and I think that happens to a lot of people. Somebody comes along and says, "Oh, you'd be good at this," and then you decide to be a dancer or a weaver or potter,
there's
whatever
something inside you that loves it, right? There's something inside you that you're doing it because you like to do it. And then somebody comes along and says, "Man, you're really good at that." And then there's something that happens inside you, right? And then
you're like, "Absolutely,
I love it.
Absolutely.
I love it. I like doing it, and I get good feelings from other people for doing it." So you just fall in love with it, right?
Yeah. Especially from adults. I think kids. I've spent my life working with kids as a therapist, and I recognize that so much that kids look to people who will reinforce something in them that makes them feel good about themselves. You know, that's right.
So you were a social worker. You were a social worker to support your family.
That's right. I graduated from the University of Oregon in architectural design. I never went on to get a master's degree in it. But I worked for a few years in the design field and got married really young when I was 20. We had 4 kids, and a career in art wasn't exactly the thing that would put food on the table. So I left my job as a designer in a store down here and went back to school and got a master's degree in social work eventually.
That's kind of a different field than the design that you were doing, architectural design that you were doing before.
Yeah, I was really doing interior designs and landscape designs.
Oh, okay.
It was really quite a job.
But why did you, I mean, just out of curiosity, why did you make the switch to social work?
Well, I actually did my graduate thesis on why people choose careers in social work. And one of the findings I did with a group of people is that people that go into helping professions, teachers, nurses, psychiatrists, social workers, often are looking for answers for themselves. And I would certainly say that was true in my case.
Wow.
So are you retired now?
I left my job about 11 years ago.
Okay.
And I was a director of a social service agency in Portland, and I decided that I wanted to remodel 1930s arts and crafts houses. So my son and I did 3 houses after that. And it didn't feel like I was retired, you know, because I was working day and night, trying to recoup the money that I put in. And now having been writing, and I write an online magazine, and put out a blog, and I've got 4 shows this year. It doesn't feel exactly like retired from work, as you know, people see your artwork and they think, well, how long could that take? But, well, it could be your 10th attempt, you know. Somebody said that at a watercolor show years ago that I won an award in, and it was a piece of Japanese tissue paper that I had tried to paint on in really kind of that crush style about 8 times. And these 2 women didn't know me, but they were looking at it, and it had a prize ribbon on it. This one woman said, "Oh, look at this! Anybody can do this." And so I thought sometimes people don't know the pain or emotion or the work that goes into sometimes.
Yeah, and there's also stuff that you start, and then it takes you years before you get back to it.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah. You'll find that now. That just save everything because it will become a collage for the future.
So do you consider yourself a full-time artist now?
An artist and a writer.
What is your blog in your magazine?
I wrote a monthly. It's called Second Tuesday, and it's about what I consider living a finished life. How do you live each day so that when you complete it at the end, you feel like you've done all that you could to have your relationships be kind of decent, feel some kind of peace within yourself, feel that you are progressing on some kind of dream that you certainly may never get to. So I write a monthly magazine. It has usually about 12 to 15 articles by different people in it. There's little articles on artists, all geared towards how do you end the day with some sense of peace. This month is on risk and discovery. What do we have to risk? What are we fearful of risking and why? What's our potential to discover, no matter certainly how old we are, our handicaps, or our financial resources.
That sounds like it's along the lines of social work.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. Yeah, I've said often that each of us has a story in our heart, and a history, that if we could find some way to let that out, to tell it, to dance it, to weave it, to draw it, to sing it, to carve it, has the potential to affect the life of another person and thereby change the world a little bit. So that's what I really like to do. That's what I like to use that e-zine for, and talking to you guys tonight, something like that.
Yeah,
Get that
like
message out.
We really appreciate you being here.
So, what's the name of your book?
It's called Parentheses.
He's got one stashed back there. We're going to show you.
Just like,
He did this painting. Oh, that's something we definitely need to talk about. The cover of that, he did that painting. It's hanging on the wall back here. It's an encaustic. That's the second part of a 2-part, I think, the way you told me. You want to talk about that?
okay, the book's called Parentheses, a memoir of my life before, during, and after my death. And it's really how I became involved with Chris Haberman, not only through some personal relationships, but he was very intrigued about an experience I had 5 years ago this month. I had been kind of discouraged because of a variety of financial issues in our life. And remodeled a very elaborate house right before the plunge of the real estate market.
Yeah.
And I was tired all the time and didn't know why. And so a physician set me up for a angiogram, which is just a very simple little procedure where they run a catheter through your vein and look at your heart and see if your veins are slowing you down, because I have ran most of my life and I was getting breathless and tired. And so that was scheduled in December. And in December, I wrote a journal entry because I write every single day. And I said that I felt like time was just almost running out, and I was just discouraged and I didn't know what's wrong with me. So I wrote a prayer, and I'm a very secular person, but I was doing a workshop about journaling. And they said, well, write a letter to God or the universe, whatever you believe in, and tell it what you think is wrong. So I was very skeptical about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I did. I wrote a letter in December, and I said, in January, just 2 days before I had my angiogram, and I said, dear universe, things are pretty bum, and I don't feel good, and I feel like time's running out. And what I'd like to do is to wake up from this procedure a changed man with a different view of my life. Now, 1.5 million angiograms are done every year in the United States, and the
Nobody
percentage
has any
of
problems, right?
nothing goes wrong with it. Absolutely nothing. I mean, in the scope of the number of people on Earth, it would be one in billions of people that something would go wrong. So my wife and I were going to go to the beach the day after I had this, and so I just bonked in there. And right before I left for the hospital, though, I was downstairs, and I was actually anxious because I thought, well, they're going to find something wrong. I just kind of feel like it's not going to go on. That was 4 o'clock in the morning. So I wrote a letter in the journal. I said, I don't have any answers to this prayer that I wrote, and pretty nervous. And I did a drawing of this picture. I said, okay, I'm going to paint this when I get home. I didn't have any.
I'm going to show the painting real quick.
Okay, I didn't have any idea why I drew that picture, but I did. And then I went to the hospital, and it was just a simple procedure, but partway through it, a doctor came out and told my wife that things were great. They discovered a little blockage in one of my arteries and have it fixed within the hour. I could go to the beach when we got out. And by the time she got back to the cath lab, I'd had a cardiac arrest, and suddenly they started CPR. The surgery in another room was scrapped by one of the leading surgeons here in Portland. They wanted him to be available. So they did 40 minutes of CPR. Usually, if they do more than 5 minutes, a person doesn't have any brain function. Certainly, most people don't. But they didn't give up. In a hospital, when you have a cardiac arrest in front of staff, it's called a witnessed event. So they have to proceed as long as they can. And I was awake when it started, and I remember being in the cath lab. And they called in a surgeon, and he eventually did open heart massage. So they take your heart in their hands and punch it to keep it beating. And they gave me oxygen, so I did wake up 5 days later. But during that time, somewhere between the time I said goodbye to my wife, and I'll see you in a while, and going into the cath lab, and they have you breathe deep and hold your breath, and lights go on and off. I had an experience, so I'll tell you about that.
Absolutely, I want to know about that.
So I remember going in the cath lab, and I remember being instructed to breathe deep and hold my breath. And then suddenly I heard breaking glass, and I heard metal, and it sounded as if it was rushing across the floor.